Election Commission has warned two leaders, Congress's Supriya Shrinate and BJP's Dilip Ghosh, after their wild, derogatory and misogynist posts or remarks, whatever you have it. There was a post from Supriya Shrinate's account with a picture of Kangana Ranaut asking what her cost in the mandi was. Mandi, a Hindi word for market, but also Kangana Ranaut's constituency. BJP's Dilip Ghosh had said, when Didi goes to Goa, she becomes Goa's daughter. In Tripura, she says, I'm Tripura's daughter. Decide who is your father. This is not right, Dilip Ghosh had said. Now, the Election Commission stated that their remarks constituted low-level personal remarks. These words are important. The Election Commission, and I'm repeating it, the Election Commission stated that their remarks constituted low-level personal remarks, violating the Model Code of Conduct. But is a warning enough? Or should we be relieved that at least a warning has been sent out? These are seasoned politicians who have seen elections after elections. Political rhetoric is ingrained in them. So where does the line get drawn? And these are not the only cases in 2024. We are talking only about the first 3 months of 2024. Let's look at some of them. Now, BJP has gone against Rahul Gandhi, has filed a complaint before the Election Commission, where Rahul Gandhi has said Prime Minister Modi is trying to do match fixing in polls, and if BJP comes back, the nation will be set on fire. BJP is the complainant. There's no action yet. This is just something that has gone to the poll panel today. Then you have Yatindra Siddaramaiah, Congress leader, who said Amit Shah is rowdy and a gunda. BJP is a complainant. No action yet. Tejasvi Surya, a BJP MP, had said Congress backing jihadis. Complainant is EC's own flying squad and a civic body. FIR has been registered. Shobha Karandlaje, Union Minister, person from Tamil Nadu, planted bomb in Rameshwaram Cafe. Tamil Nadu police is the complainant in this case. No action yet by the Election Commission. Nirmala Sitharaman, the Finance Minister, has said, why cast votes for a party that destroys temples? DMK is a complainant. No action yet by the Election Commission. Now, there are two aspects, remember, low-level attacks as well as hate speech. Now, let's just review what does the Model Code of Conduct say about election campaign narrative. And I quote, no aspect of the private life not connected with the public activities of the leaders or workers of other parties is to be criticized. Low-level personal attacks to insult the rivals shall not be made. No temples, mosques, churches, gurdwaras or any places of worship are to be used for election propaganda or electioneering. References which ridicule the relations between devotee, deity or suggestions of divine censure shall not be made. This is what the Election Commission's advisory reads. Parties have also been advised against making any statements or actions or utterances that may be construed as being repugnant to the honor and dignity of women. And each of the complaints have filed these advisories. In fact, what I mean to say is each of the complainants that have raised the complaints against particular people have showed that they have failed these advisories at every point. Now, add to this the debate of Election Commission's impartiality. It only becomes a heady cocktail. Remember, Supreme Court bench led by K.M. Joseph said this in 2022. It's a very disturbing trend after TN session. This slide began when no person has been given a full term. What the government has been doing is that because it knows the date of birth, it ensures that anyone who is appointed as the CEC does not get its full 6 years. Be it the UPA government or this government, referring to the BJP-led government, this has been a trend. And the bench went on to say this is how the silences of the Constitution can be exploited. There is no law, no check, everyone has used it to their interest. Before we go any further, I'm being joined right now by Dr. S.Y. Quraishi, who's a former Election Commission, Chief Election Commissioner. Thank you very much, S.Y. Quraishi, for joining us. My first question to you, Dr. Quraishi, and help me understand in this context with all that I have mentioned right now in terms of the seasoned leaders, seasoned politicians who have seen elections after elections violating the model code of conduct, which has given very clear advisories on what parties must do and must not do. Is a warning enough?
Well, if you read the Model Code of Conduct, it is not a law. It is a voluntary code of conduct developed by the political parties themselves and enforced by the Election Commission. And all it can do is advise, warn, and maximum punishment is censure. It cannot imprison anybody, it cannot disqualify anybody, because at the same time, please remember, the moral authority of the model code is actually very high. The fact that these two cases that you have been mentioning have been in the news all these days for the last 1 week, and the Election Commission has warned them to be careful, and it will be the headline tomorrow. It is actually a pretty strong indictment, and it does affect public opinion. At the same time, please remember that most of the clauses of model code are also mentioned in the Representation of People Act or Indian Penal Code. If penal provision is attracted, an FIR is also filed simultaneously. The difference is that under the model code, we give a notice to the offender that to reply within 24 hours or 48 hours, and the reply comes within 20 hours. Whereas if it is when the FIR is filed for 6 months, the police will take time to register an FIR. It will take years for the courts to decide. You will never get to know what happened to that case. But if both the things are attracted, simultaneous activity takes place, but the immediate impact of the model code is not to be underestimated or undervalued.
Okay, you make an interesting point. You're saying actually what the Election Commission does expedites the process instead of just lingering for 6 months or beyond with the police action that may follow or may not follow under the IPC or the FIR that would have followed. Now, adding to this whole perspective of what you have added, isn't the next question something that's been going on year after year, particularly since 2019, in fact, even before that for that matter, that if all the Election Commission can do is give a notice, warn or censure, then aren't we even talking about a very toothless Election Commission that, by the way, is responsible for a very fair, impartial process of election in India? That's the body that is responsible, not the police. So if you are talking about a poll panel that is supposed to ensure this, how can only a warning or a censure power be given to them?
Yes, I'll give you one example. I've heard this word toothless for the last 20 years, even in my time. But as I said, that this is a
and even before this,
and I'll give you
in fact, the Supreme Court has gone on to say this as well.
Fair enough. But let me give you one example. In my time, Mr. Prakash Singh Badal, who was the senior most political leader, he warned the chief electoral officer of Punjab that you are behaving like this arrogantly, and when your election is over, you come back to the cadre and see what I'll do to you. I wrote a letter to him, strongest possible letter, that Mr. Badal, you are the senior most politician, and you have threatened our officer. The consequences are great. It was the headline in all the newspapers. Same day, Mr. Badal wrote a profuse apology that I'm so old and I've never done this in my life and never do it again. His apology was the headline of the next day. Now, this is the impact it creates. No FIR would have achieved that. And in any case, FIR's result comes in 20 years. Another thing which we did, law minister of the land, of the same party which had appointed me, he made an announcement that the Muslim quota will be increased by 4.5%. BJP came to us and complained, and we heard the two parties and 10 lawyers on both sides for 5 days. And we censured the law minister of the land, which is the highest punishment under the model code, and there is no appeal in the court also. Ask the same gentleman how he feels about it. You might say it is toothless, we did not hang him, we did not do this, we did not do that. That censure itself is a very extreme step, and the result is instant. And somebody has used a cricket analogy. Yeah, whether Sachin Tendulkar is LBW, if you refer it to the code, you will know it in 10 years. It is the referee who has to decide the very next ball should not be a next ball, no ball. Otherwise, he will throw the player out. So that's why the model code has a different role and a complementary role. The laws of the land take care of serious offences, and they are enforced, no doubt. But immediate impact is created by the model code. The fact that you are debating itself is an impact.
Okay. I'm sure it's going to be very interesting for our viewers to hear all that you are talking, particularly about the precedents. Now, with what you have said, and I expect you to give me an impartial answer on this. Over the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, have you seen a change in the way election commissioners have been dealing with political parties in terms of taking on the complaints and responding to the complaints vis-a-vis the political parties or the leader in question? Has that changed, according to you?
Well, yeah, a very provocative question, because you question my honesty and integrity. All my answers are always honest, let me tell you. Now, it is true that in 2019,
Absolutely, sir.
the Election
It's
Commission
always a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, no, very, very kind of you. Now, in 2019, it did happen that the Election Commission did not take cognizance of 4 or 5 complaints of model code violation by 2 top leaders. They did not take action for 25 days. The fact that there was a revolt within the commission, which shows that the commission also has a conscience. One of the 3 commissioners revolted, and how he was hounded out, it's a long story. Now, important thing is that the matter went to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that you are sitting over it for 25 days. And as I told you, in the model code, we are supposed to take action within 24 hours. And here you are sitting for 25 days. What nonsense. Immediately, the Election Commission got into the act, decided the cases in favor of the people who had violated. Nobody has questioned that decision on merit. Nobody. It is only the fact that they delayed it, they sat over it for 25 days, but it did bring Election Commission into discredit, which is a pity, which makes me sad, because this reputation takes years to build, minutes to demolish, and every citizen is concerned. I'm concerned as a citizen, and a little more because I had also laid 2-3 bricks to that institution.
Right. Right. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your perspective. Last question, and I understand many times there is this issue between freedom of speech and what may be perceived as a moral censure. The Election Commission, one of the things that the Election Commission always tries not doing is to create a moral censure that may look as an impediment to the freedom of speech. But unfortunately, the way the narratives and the counters emerge during the election season in politics, it's not always a narrow road. How should voters be looking at this? How should the current poll bodies, Election Commission be looking at this? Last question, sir.
Yeah, quite right. Article 19 gives freedom of speech, but it says that there could be reasonable restrictions. Model code, if it puts any restriction on hate speech, it is a reasonable restriction. If it puts a limit on communal and caste appeal or using religious institutions, it is a restriction on the freedom of expression, but a reasonable restriction. So it is all constitutional, it is all legal and valid, and for a good cause. And it is doing pretty well, because in the heat of the moment, the election model code violations will continue to happen. At the same time, point is that whether Election Commission takes prompt and even-handed action, that is the key word. The level playing field is the buzzword in the Election Commission, which guides us all the time.
Okay. All right. Dr. S.Y. Quraishi, I cannot thank you enough for joining us, for sharing a very important perspectives as somebody who has been on this post and has guided India through some very, very crucial elections. Dr. S.Y. Quraishi, thank you again for joining us.